Hello, everybody, and welcome to a live video. Start off the day and the week here at the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola, and I'm going to keep it real. I'm freezing cold. I swear it's objectively cold in here. I'm not just, like, internally cold, like a fever or anything like that. No, it's really cold, and the title is obviously a bit of hyperbole, but let's keep it real. As we've been describing week after week as this crisis has unfolded, to the extent that Donald Trump could be ignorant of the threat that we're facing, ill-prepared mentally, psychologically to deal with it, he has been, and that has had an effect. And you've seen it. You've seen it develop. But just in case you weren't following along this entire way, and by the way, I went back. Our first video about coronavirus is more than 2 months old at this point. This entire time it has been developing, and just now we're seeing some like emergency measures, and almost entirely that is focused around trying to buttress the stock market effectively. We can see, how effectively that's been working, which we'll go over in the full show. Yes, I did get a haircut. I did give it to myself because, hashtag stay home and all that. So I gave it to myself, and to save a little bit of money. We're going to need to learn those skills as we enter into the apocalypse. But anyway, let's go over a few of Donald Trump's many claims that this is not something that we need to worry about, which, let's just say, has two possible sort of angles that come from it. That we don't have to worry about is potentially, and he might say, reassuring to the American people. Let's not panic. But he does need to worry about it in that he needs to prepare for it, okay? And he hasn't been doing that. And so way back January 22nd, he said, we have it totally under control. So that was nearly 2 months ago. It's like a week short of 2 months ago at this point. 2 days later, the 24th, it will all work out well. That I love even more, because it's one thing to be like, we have it under control. We have it locked down. Not airtight, but it's basically locked down. It's another just to be like, it's going to be cool. And that is a constant throughout this. We've got, let's see, January 30th. So 6 days now. 8 days since the first comment, 6 days since it will all work out well. He says, we think we have it very well under control. We have very little problem in this country at this moment. 5. And those people are all recuperating successfully. Understand, of course, that at this point, when we had those 5 cases, there was effectively no testing going on. Not the small amount of testing that we're doing right now. There's effectively no testing whatsoever. So it is impossible to say at that point whether we had 5 cases or 50 cases or 5,000 cases. We don't know. Trump didn't know when he made that claim. And it would be one thing if he said that publicly while pushing behind the scenes to make sure that we get those kits, that we start ramping up the number of tests. But he wasn't doing that. And I know that because he won't do it for nearly 2 months after that quote. A couple days later, he says, well, we pretty much shut it down coming in from China. We can't have thousands of people coming in who may have this problem, the coronavirus. So we're going to see what happens. But we did shut it down, yes. Narrator cuts in, we did not shut it down, actually, at that point. He says, let's see, the 10th, we have another nearly week goes by, slightly more than a week. I think the virus is going to be, it's going to be fine. February 14th, we have a very small number of people in the country right now, it's 4 days later with it. It's like around 12, so we've jumped 7 people that we admit to. Again, effectively at this point, we're doing no testing whatsoever. Many of them are getting better. Some are fully recovered already, so we're in very good shape. 5 days go by, again, still no action. By the way, we're having weak jumps here where we could have been, like they're saying now, like you can't expect that we're just going to have the testing kits all of a sudden. No, but it's not all of a sudden. We're talking about literally months now where we could have been pushing for this. February 19th, I think it's going to work out fine. I think when we get into April, in the warmer weather, that has a very negative effect on that and that type of a virus. So let's see what happens, but I think it's going to work out fine. Do you believe he knows anything about that type of a virus? I don't think so. 5 days later, the coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. Stock market starting to look very good to me. I wonder how many of his followers started buying up stocks when their favorite businessman was like, it's looking very good to me. A day later, you may ask about the coronavirus, which is very well under control in our country. We have very few people with it. Again, we don't know at that point how many people we have with it. And the people that have it are getting better. They're all getting better. As far as what we're doing with the new virus, I think that we're doing a great job. By the way, he starts to talk more often about it because at this point we're not doing better. The 26th, because of all we've done, the risk to the American people remains very low. When you have 15 people, and the 15 within a couple of days is going to be down to close to 0, that's a pretty good job we've done. By the way, I believe that's when we have far more than 15 at that point, but it takes like a week for it to get through to him that he can't just keep saying the number 15. Okay, we had 15 that we knew of at that point. Let's see. February 26th. Asked if it worries him that it could be spreading inside of our communities. At this point, this is not just about new people coming in from abroad and spreading it, but that people were out there with it that we didn't know because we hadn't been testing and they were giving it to people. He says, no, because we're ready for it. It is what it is. We're ready for it. We're really prepared. We hope it doesn't spread. There's a chance that it won't spread too, and there's a chance that it will, and then it's a question of at what level. Okay, maybe it's a question of at what level, but hypothetically at this point, you could be doing something, anything, really. This is almost a month ago, still, when he was saying that. And he still, so far as we knew, was doing absolutely nothing. Because, like, more than 3 weeks after that quote, what would he announce to us? That Google was in the early stages of working on a site, okay, that there are gonna be test kits at some point. Like, the best they had weeks after that quote was, we're working on stuff and maybe at some point, maybe we could lower them interest. Only a very small number in US and China numbers look to be going down. All countries working well together. Next day, I think it's going really well. We did something very fortunate. We closed up to certain areas of the world very, very early. Later that day, it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. That he's in charge. Like, he could do something. He's saying, well, effectively, we need a miracle. He's not admitting that there. We're the #1 travel destination anywhere in the world. March 4th. This is a few weeks ago. This is like a week after some of those early quotes. Some people will have this at a very light level and won't even go to a doctor or hospital, and they'll get better. There are many people like that. Well, we should fucking hope so, because we're certainly not testing them. We're certainly not treating them. They won't even know, because even if they have the symptoms, they will go to a doctor, and the doctor will tell them, we can't test you. Maybe you have it, maybe you don't. We don't know. We can't know. Hopefully, some of those people will get better. Almost certainly, some of those people died, and we didn't know for sure what it is that even killed them. By the way, we got a little bit more of this, so please hit the like button if you're enjoying this little timeline. March 5th, with approximately 100,000 coronavirus cases worldwide and 3,280 deaths, the U.S., because of quick action on closing our borders, has, as of now, only 129 cases and 11 deaths. That seems quaint by comparison to what we have now. That was 129. We now have, I believe it's close to 4,000. I think New York has over 900, I believe. That was 129 and 11 deaths. Okay, March 6th. We did an interview on Fox. By the way, I'm skipping tons of these. I think it was very good, the town hall. And I said, calm. You have to be calm. It'll go away. Being calm is not how it's going to go away. People should be calm. People who have no direct ability to solve the problem, maybe the best they can do is be calm. And not hoard, hopefully. You should do more than just be calm. The next day, it came out of China, and we heard about it. And made a good move. We closed it down. We stopped it. That was thousands of cases ago. He said that. Thousands of cases that we actually know about. Talks about the fake news media, hyping up the threat. He starts to have a whole bunch of quotes about the flu and how much worse it is than coronavirus. On March 9th, he says, at this moment, there are 546 confirmed cases of coronavirus with 11 deaths, with 22 deaths. Think about that. So he was bragging at 11 deaths. He's bragging at 22 deaths. The next day, as you know, it's about 600 cases. It's about 26 deaths within our country. And had we not acted quickly, that number would have been substantially more. So now the next day, he's bragging about 4 more deaths. March 12th, it's going to go away. The United States, because of what I did and what the administration did with China, we have 32 deaths at this point. When you look at the kind of numbers that you're seeing out of other countries, it's pretty amazing when you think about it. So there he's bragging about 6 more deaths. I mean, look, later today, he's going to have his thing at 3:30, right? Okay, he's going to brag about 70 deaths. Maybe it'll be 80 deaths by that point. Maybe it'll be more. And again, we have thousands of cases, but that's not even the number that we have. That's only the number that we know. And look, as I'm going to say in the show later on, because shockingly, we're going to have some news about coronavirus. In the near term, if we start to ramp up the testing, okay, if we actually have the ability to test people and the numbers go up, that is going to be scary. I admit it. But it will actually be a victory for us to actually know who has this. So even the new information, which is going to be scary, and we will talk about it, I will try to put it in the context of if people are being tested and if we find out that they have it, that they're being quarantined, that they're being treated, that is success. As I've said from the very beginning, Trump is not responsible for it existing. He's responsible for what he's done and what he has not done. And what I've been trying to accomplish by going through this timeline is pointing out to you that we had weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks where he could have done something, and he chose not to. He was so worried about you thinking something was bad and thus not approving of him that he delayed and delayed and delayed. He could have been pushing for more kits more than 2 months ago. It was already all over China. It had already spread to many countries at that point, but he did not prioritize it. And now, as the numbers continue to rise, thousands of cases that we know about, what are we hoping for at this point? That maybe Senate Republicans will sign on to something, anything to help people out? They're currently blocking all of the efforts in Congress to do something about this. And because we don't have a single single-payer healthcare system, it's an emergency that we have to respond to after it's already done a ton of damage. And as I said in the debate coverage yesterday, let's say we move through this, and let's say another bad one hits. It will again be a disaster that we have to respond to as quickly as we can after it's already done some damage, rather than just being ready for it, okay? By having a healthcare system that is designed to protect people, not to protect the profits of these massive corporations. That's what we have right now. Like there's a great article on Common Dreams right now. Public health experts, single-payer systems coping with coronavirus more effectively than for-profit model. Washington Post said, it's too soon to see definite outcomes among competing healthcare systems, but even in this early phase, public health experts say the single-payer state-run systems are proving themselves relatively robust. Unlike the United States, where a top health official told Congress the rollout of testing was failing, and where Congress is only now moving through a bill that includes free testing, the single-payer countries have been especially nimble at making free or low-cost virus screening widely available for patients with coughs and fevers. Obviously. And of course, yesterday, we're having some issues with the chat, I apologize. At the debate last night, Biden kept saying, we should have Medicare for all for this. But this is not evidence that we would have been better off if we already had it, even though we are now scrambling to try to put it into effect on an ad hoc basis for each crisis that we face. We're going to do another one of these videos, I assume, in a month. Whatever comment he makes today, what he says in 3 days, still delaying. Because he's a moron, because he doesn't understand science, he doesn't respect expertise, and he cares more about his own reputation than he does the actual human cost of his inaction. And it's proceeding every day. We've been talking about it here on the Damage Report, I think longer than virtually anyone, partly because we actually cover international news. So I didn't wait until it hit the United States or looked like it might to start talking about it. But we knew that it was coming. He could have done something. Now we can only work with the situation we have. If you can avoid exposure, do that for yourself, but also if you get infected to, protect. Yeah, it is the Damage Report today, but to protect others as well. Like, we now have to have a more extreme response than we would, just like with climate change, by the way, than we would have if we had done what was necessary back when we had time. But we don't have time now. Now we have to attempt to, as everyone's been pointing out, flatten the curve, because our healthcare system could be absolutely slammed by an explosion of cases, and we need to avoid that. We cannot avoid people getting it at this point. Tragically, we can't avoid people dying from it. But hopefully we can limit that as much as possible to allow the system to cope with where we're at and for testing kits to finally be rolled out and eventually vaccines, hopefully as soon as possible. That is the best case scenario that we have been left with, in part because of the glacial progress in our federal government to dealing with this, even though we had as much warning as we could possibly hope to have. In the future, there will be diseases like this that will hit us that we will not have, more than a month of it being constrained to either China or to other countries in that region. It could develop here and spread. We had time and we didn't use it. Anyway, that's depressing. I apologize, but it is the damage report after all. I hope that someday the name of the show will be anachronistic and it'll need to be changed because we won't be facing so much daily horror. But unfortunately, right now, the show could not be better named. Now, we are going to have a full show. I'm going to have a couple of guests. We're going to be talking about DC statehood. We've got a Senate candidate who's going to be joining us. And also, I'm going to update you on the continuing, even this weekend, efforts by right-wingers to encourage their fans to go out and expose themselves to coronavirus in as many ways as possible. It is all over the place. It comes in many forms. I'm going to be updating you on it. A story broke that Trump was trying to buy out a vaccine company to develop the vaccine exclusively for the United States. I have my doubts about that, so I'm going to express those. And then a little bit on last night's Democratic debate to close things out. Also, some really interesting reporting on totally non-coronavirus news from The Intercept on TikTok and the way they've been culling certain sorts of people from being featured on their service. I have never had an excuse to talk about TikTok before, but I believe this is it. So we will be closing out the show with that. Anyway, thank you everybody for joining me for this. I will just say very quickly in terms of sort of, I guess, inside baseball a bit. Basically, every industry, aside from toilet paper, is being hit hard by this coronavirus situation. We are not immune from that. I will just let you know that monetization is always difficult on YouTube over the past couple of years. Videos about the pandemic do not effectively get monetized. And so even though more people are watching this show, for instance, than ever before, we're making far less money. Now, I'm not going to let that stop me from covering what I consider to be the most important news of the day. And so most of the show going forward for a bit is still going to be about something that we effectively can't make any money on. And so if you are not already a TYT member, I would encourage you to do that to try to help keep us afloat while we are sort of being financially punished for following our ethical obligation to report on the news. So I will just say that. TYT.com/John, and you can sign up there. But anyway, I'm going to go for about 13 minutes, but the live show starts soon. You're not going to want to miss it. We got some really important information for you there. I'll see you then.